Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Purple Breakdown, a podcast covering the Baltimore Ravens and the news surrounding it. I'm glad to be back with you on this Thursday, coming up on the weekend. I hope everyone has good plans ahead and is going to enjoy the weekend. I know it's a weekend without any football being played for the NFL, as in another week, we'll have the Super Bowl between the Seahawks and the Patriots, and I'm really excited to see that. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Instead, we're here to talk about the Ravens. I'm your host, Alex, and let's jump straight into it. So I want to start with some coaching news going on, and that is former offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens has been hired officially as head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and that is Todd Monken, and he is now officially the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. I wish him the best of luck going there, but that is honestly, in my opinion, a really interesting pick going forward. Todd Monken, I know he had success with Lamar in the offense at Baltimore, but this past year, the offense inconsistencies showed. Yes, it was the number one rushing team in the league, but the passing game was not there as much, and I understand that's Lamar getting injured partially, but and not staying healthy, but I still think it's interesting seeing him going to the Browns. And honestly, I think there were better options on the table than taking Todd Monken. And when you look at the three teams in the AFC North that let their head coaches go or their head coach walked away from, the Browns, the Steelers, and the Ravens, I think the Ravens got the best choice when it comes to their new head coach. And I'm not just saying that because, well, I'm a Ravens fan and this is a Ravens podcast. A podcast covering the Ravens. I'm saying that because I honestly think that the Ravens made the best decision when it came to hiring their head coach. And Jesse Minter had a press conference today with the Ravens that we'll go into here in a little bit, but the Ravens really settled down and made sure that they made the right choice, found a guy that had X's and O's, had experience, was going to do the right thing for the team and bring accountability and develop the team and go further and try for a Super Bowl. Well, I think when looking at the Steelers and the Browns, they made some controversial choices when it comes to bringing in at their head coach with Mike McCarthy and Todd Monken, and it's not the first choices that people would have made on the board. I think this will benefit the Ravens in the long run. And again, I wish Todd Monken the best of luck at the Cleveland Browns, but at the same time, I would also prefer to see the Ravens win those games. And we'll see how it turns out for them. I think that the Ravens won when it comes to coaching hiring. Now, when it comes to hiring coaches, the search for the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator still continues for Jesse Minter. He made no comment on it today in his press conference of if anyone's been hired or if he has an idea yet. He refused to comment on that, and I understand why. They want to keep this more tight-lipped and continue their interviews. We know that Declan Doyle and Scotty Montgomery have been called in for interviews, well, requested interviews. I don't know if Declan Doyle will really ever become the offensive coordinator for the Ravens, especially since he's the offensive coordinator for the Bears, and the Bears would probably block that in any way if he tried going over. It's not a step up, it's not a promotion, and so if they just do the right things, they can stop him from leaving. I hear that Cliff Kingsbury is apparently a very strong candidate. My opinion is he's can be a good coach, is going to be an experienced play caller that can come into the room. But my problem with Cliff is that at times he lacks adaptability when it comes to the offense. And that's a thing that I've seen with the Ravens at times. And it's like, okay, you got to be able to adapt in. And Jesse Minter today in his press conference, so we're going into a little here, said that he's going to be calling the defense, which means that the offense is going to be more left to the offensive coordinator and what he wants to do with it. And so the offensive coordinator that comes in will have to be able to be adaptable and be able to not only call good plays, but work with Lamar, work with the receivers, the running backs, and just be able to be adaptable and flexible when the game plan is not working. The Ravens have also requested an interview with Davis Webb, who the Ravens talked to for their head coaching position, and he is the passing game coordinator and QB coach for the Broncos. Young, got a lot of hype around him, and I would love to see him come in and see what the Ravens think further about him. The Ravens have also requested an interview for defensive coordinator for the Broncos defensive pass game coordinator, Jim Leonhard. He is a former Baltimore Ravens player back in 2008. He was a safety. He played 13 games before moving on. And his really specialty is the secondary. And so it's a wonder of if he comes in, it's sort of my argument with Durante Jones and interviewing him of whether or not you want to fix the secondary first before the pass rush and solidify up the secondary and the versatility that's there, who can play a good supporting role to Jesse Minter. All right. Well, and that transitions perfectly into what will be going on next with not only should these coordinators that are going to be coming in support Jesse Minter, but Jesse Minter was in Baltimore. He is in Baltimore right now, and he had his press conference today where he was introduced. And some interesting things came out of this that I'd like to discuss today. And first off is that from the sounds of how Minter talked and DeCosta talked, Minter is going to be reporting both directly to Bisciotti and DeCosta. He's going to be working with both of them. I know under Harbaugh more just reported directly to Bisciotti, and I think that comes from how long he was there, that, 18 years at some point, and good friends with Bisciotti, that at some point they just trusted him and to make those reports to Bisciotti, and that DeCosta would more just help manage the roster. But Minter is working within the system. He's going to work with DeCosta. He's going to work with Bisciotti. I think that's him coming in as his first head coaching job ever. And yes, he's an experienced coach, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but he needs support when it comes to that. And that's not only going to come from the coordinators he hires and the staff that he hires, but it's also going to come from above with the experience Bisciotti and DeCosta have and being able to help guide them and weigh in opinions on where he could go and what he could use help with. And I like that he's doing this. And from the sounds of it, it's really interesting that from what I've heard now, Minter was really the top choice going into this from day one. That lots of us have been saying, oh, Brian Flores should be the number one option, Brian Flores or Cliff Kingsbury or multiple of these other guys. But from the sounds of it is that the Ravens had their eyes set on Minter from day one almost, and were just interviewing these other coaches to start getting their feet in the water with them and just seeing who they were about. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to just set your eyes on them and one person and say, hey, we're just dead set on them. We're not going to interview anyone else. That's short-sighted and cannot lead to great places in the long run. So you really do want to cast wide and look for as many options as you want, but they were already thinking of Minter, and I think this goes back to the defensive first-minded philosophy, having a good defense that is supported by a good offense, but the defense comes first, and the defense will win championships. And that Minter had coaching under Mike Macdonald when Macdonald was at the Ravens, and that he sort of adapts that style and has had experience under both Harbaugh's, Macdonald, and his father, and is taken from all these. And so he comes in with a game plan, an idea of how he wants to adapt the defense, an idea for the offense, and that impressed the Ravens, and then they cast their wide net just in case, and also to start familiarizing themselves with who are the other options out here that maybe would make good offensive coordinators too, and defensive coordinators. And I think this is going to go a long way, and I'm really excited, especially after hearing Minter speak today and thanking those who would come and help develop him as a coach and for the opportunity now. And I really am excited to see him in Baltimore. I think there will be large amounts of success here. And DeCosta, I really hope what he said today comes true, is that the goal is to hire another coach that lasts 18 years, like Harbaugh, one that lasts forever, will outlast him there, and he's gone, and we're on to a new GM already. And I think Minter, when he laid out his game plan for what he wants to see with the offense and defense this year, is he specifically said and was asked the question, are you going to be calling the defense? And he will be calling the defense. He said it. It's where his expertise lies. He thinks he can have the best handle there. And now he also said, like, just because I'll be calling the defense and I think I can really help improve the defense does not mean I will not be weighing in on the offense. He will still be weighing in on the offense, and that he has the expertise and the know-how to help weigh into the offense and what goes on there. But he will be calling the defense. And I think he's really committing to rebuilding the core values of what that defense is, bringing his scheme and his style in, and not only just that, and bringing in how he calls a defense, but the expectations. And he said it today, playing like a Raven. And I think that's really what he wants to see out of this team, is that you're not making the simple mistakes. You're not lacking execution. You're not communicating. He's going to hold them responsible and say, we are going to play like a Raven, and every single team that plays us is going to know that they're playing the Ravens and fear us. That everyone will be accountable in this. And I love hearing that. That's what I want to hear. And I think him calling the defense will be a step up from what it has been these past 2 years. And I understand Zach Orr is being interviewed and he has potential. I just don't think he was the right fit for the job at the time. So it's going to be a major step going forward, having an experienced defensive play caller who can hold players responsible, hold players accountable, and commands a presence in the room with the players, that he doesn't just stand there and go, well, I want respect. He has respect. I'm really excited to see where he keeps going forward with this. Now, he's also asked the question, and what's your thoughts with Lamar? And this came up with topics of, well, how did players come in? And apparently in the interviewing process, he did meet with some of the players, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, who had a little bit of opinion in this. And so he was already getting to know the players. And now the question comes up, what's going to be your relationship with Lamar? And he just straight out says, I like Lamar. He loves the player that he is. He thinks he's a great player, an MVP, two-time level MVP that's going to go forward and win a Super Bowl for the Ravens, and that he is going to maintain that relationship with Lamar, do everything he can for Lamar, and build the offense around Lamar. And I think this is just further cementing the talks that are going on with Lamar right now to extend his contract, restructure the contract so it's not as heavy on the cap hit, and that they are fully committed to Lamar. And I know some people will not like to hear this. They want the trade to happen. I'm sorry. It does not make sense to trade Lamar away. And I can't keep re-emphasizing this enough, that it does not make sense to trade Lamar away. If you trade Lamar away before the June 1st time, you take the full cap hit. And so you don't really get much in cap space. You take a $75 million cap hit. Well, after June 1st, sure, it's a $22 million cap hit, and you're like, oh, that sounds so much better. But what do you have at quarterback at that point? And the Ravens trust Lamar, and the coaching staff trust Lamar. I trust Lamar. He's a proven talent, one of the best in the league, and I fully believe one day he will go on and help lead the Ravens to a Super Bowl. And I think that should be the end of the conversation when it comes to Lamar, that he will be a Raven. I think it's as simple as that. And that's really what I got out of this press conference today, is the commitment that Minter is going to have to the Ravens, that the commitment he's going to have to rebuilding the defense, not maybe entirely rebuilding, but resetting it to the point where it is back to being a formidable defense, and committing to the offense in Lamar, and finding the right staff, holding people accountable, and just playing and coaching like a Raven. And that is what I want to hear at this point. And that is why I am so excited to see him coming into the team. I think the Ravens made a great pick. They found somebody who knows the X's and the O's, is coming in with a game plan, and is going to succeed. Now, I've done a little more further, and I think one of the ways that he's going to succeed, and this is probably going to be more with DeCosta, I mean, I believe that Minter would definitely have a say in it, and the scouting staff will definitely have a say in it. They're going to say where they think the biggest problems are with the Ravens this upcoming year, and where the holes need to be filled, and it's going to come to free agency and the draft. And I already talked on the free agency and some of the players that are out there, and we'll revisit that here soon. But I'm just going to reiterate for the draft again, especially as draft boards are beginning to be made, and heading into the offseason and all the predictions, is that the Ravens need to focus on the trenches. DeCosta said this. O-line, D-line first. That's where they need to build off first. And I think when looking at it in the first round, there's talents there that the Ravens should look at first. And I know lots of people are screaming for edge, and I understand the need for edge, but Mike Green is there, and if you can re-sign Durante Jones, that's a good part. And but I think the problem is looking at the center and the interior of the defensive line and how you can solidify that up, especially if Matabike does not come back. And I know others are saying offensive side of the line, especially on the interior line, the guards. And I look at that and I go, I understand the need there, but I think it's a lot easier to find a serviceable lineman than it is to find a great defensive interior. And I think having a higher ceiling and capabilities on the D line is so much more important than getting somebody with a higher floor but a lower ceiling on the O line. And so when it really comes to the first round, I would argue that the first thing that the Ravens should be looking at is defensive tackle. And if Peter Woods is on the board when it comes to the 14th pick, that they should take Peter Woods in a heartbeat. That it should just be like that. I think he may have a little lower of a floor, but a much higher of a ceiling, especially with the capabilities that he has shown, the explosiveness, the strength, the talent, that the ceiling is a lot higher with the right coaching there. And I think Minter and the coaching staff that will be brought in has the capability to coach him up and make him into a great defensive tackle that will be a four down player, that it is more important to focus on getting that than it is to focus on the O line in that first pick. And now, if Peter Woods is off the table, then I look elsewhere in Falk and Howell maybe on the edge, and then you can start looking at that. I would also argue that if Woods isn't there, but Mekhi Lemon is, I think he'd be a great pick if you're wanting to help on the offensive side of the ball with Lamar. I think that would be a great a great move right there. And I understand the need for offensive line, especially with Iona out of Penn State. I think he's a great guard. I think he has a higher floor but a lower ceiling than what Peter Woods could get out of the defense. And honestly, I was thinking about it and looking, if you can get Peter Woods in the first round, there's still guards available in the second round, especially with Emmanuel Pregnant out of Oregon, that you could get Peter Woods and then the second round immediately turn and get him out of Oregon. And he's a good guard and a serviceable guard, maybe not as high a ceiling as what people think out of Iona, but that's a great 1-2 punch. And then a third round, you could go to wide receiver, edge. And a lot of picks for the Ravens come in the later rounds, but that would be a great first three picks. Especially if you're forced to go wide receiver or guard in the first round, because I think I would go defensive tackle, wide receiver, then guard or edge. They're about neck and neck there, depending on who's left. In the second round, you have a guard there, and you also have an edge. I really like Overton out of Alabama. He would be a very good edge, I believe. And so there's players there and there's talent there. And so I'm starting to develop the board, and I just wanted to emphasize today that looking in the first round, I think it would be very good for the Ravens to look not only towards the trenches, but towards defensive tackle first. And I'm going to re-emphasize the need for a higher ceiling in the first round with Peter Woods and defensive tackle than it would be to get a higher floor but a lower ceiling guard. And there's guards out there in free agency that can be looked at too. So I'd like to thank you. I know I'm ending a little abruptly, but I'd like to thank you for joining into the podcast today. That was all I had to discuss. I'll continue to develop the board, and in the next coming weeks, as more news comes out, we'll continue to discuss and talk about that. And I'm developing more into the board and the players that I'm putting on it, and I'm doing that on PFF. It's just easier. And here up soon, we'll do a mock draft and go into my picks for the different rounds that I would choose if I was DaCosta and the Ravens organization looking at it. So I'd like to thank you all so much for joining. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe, like, leave a comment. It really helps the channel grow. Share it. I love talking back and forth. I love seeing comments. It makes my day seeing the comments. If you're on Spotify, follow the podcast, share it, leave a review. It helps make it more noticeable to other people. And I can't thank you all so much for joining in. And I can't wait to see you all next time. Thank you. Have a great day.